Welcome. My name is Elijah Whitlock. I will be your guide on this stretch of the Cracked Canyon Trail. I stand before you not with the broad smile or excessive friendliness typically associated with professional tour guides. I carry no brightly colored backpack, nor do I have pre-rehearsed jokes about majestic peaks. I wear only a worn leather coat, boots that have seen countless miles, and in my hand is a stout oak walking staff I made myself. You, with your pristine hiking shoes, advanced GPS compasses, and gleaming water bottles, you look like people who have come here to conquer. I am here to ensure that you are not conquered by this land. Mountain Ridge Tours. We are still referred to by the elders as the Dollar Charm Company. Even our official name is a recent concession to state regulation and insurance law. But you must understand this. We are not some frivolous travel agency. We are guardians, and this trip is not recreation. It is a permission. It is a test of respect. My family has walked these mountains since before they had a name on any map, since before any European explorer sketched jagged lines on vellum and decided to label it. We are not owners of the land. We are simply sustainers. My father, my grandfather, and before them, the first Whitlock who ventured into this forest. They were all guides. They did not guide because they wanted to show off the view or seek fortune. They did it because if they didn't establish boundaries and rules, the forest would spill out and the town would suffer. They survived not because they loved the land, but because they respected it. This is a crucial distinction. Love is emotional. It is blind. Respect is the acknowledgement of this land's absolute power, the understanding that one misstep can turn you into fertilizer for the oaks. When my grandfather spoke of the mountain, he always called it the cold stomach. He said, "It only digests what doesn't belong." My mother, she was the town librarian at the foot of the mountain. She believed that the story is how the mountain remembers things. She didn't care for maps. She cared for old registry books, lost witness accounts, and poems written by lost miners before they vanished. She said, "If you do not know the story of the mountain, you will become one." What does it mean to become a story? It does not mean you are memorialized. It means you become a warning, a grim paragraph underlined in some guide's notebook, a reason for others to tremble. If you wander off and the mountain decides to keep you, your entire life, your existence, will be condensed into a brief horror anecdote, a reason why a certain child is not allowed to go too far into the woods. My mother spent her life collecting those stories, organizing them not by date, but by transgression of rules, transgression of boundaries. Now, concerning the Dollar Charm Company name you hear, I maintain the selling of these things. You may have seen them when you signed the liability waiver. They are not mass-produced plastic souvenirs. They are charms, made from 3 essential components: iron, salt, and dried sage. I make them myself every month, from rusty scraps of iron we find in the dump or near the old railroad tracks, coarse unrefined sea salt, and bundles of sage I collect myself in the dry valleys to the west. They are not finely welded or molded. They are bound together with rough twine. They cost $1. Exactly $1, no change given. Their value is not material. It is in acknowledgement. I don't do this for profit. If I wanted money, I'd charge $500 for this hike and sell t-shirts with the mountain silhouette. $1 is a symbolic fee. You do not place a price on survival. You merely show that you have prepared yourself mentally and exhibited minimal respect. Why iron, salt, and sage? The natives here have long believed that iron, especially rusty, dead iron, is what ancient entities despise. Iron represents civilization, harshness, change, things that disrupt the silence of the Wildwood. Carrying a bit of iron, even a small scrap in your pocket, is a way of telling whatever is watching you. I am not entirely of this place, and I carry what you dislike. Salt has always been a preservative, a purification. It represents stability and purity. But here, it also acts as a barrier. The old stories say the creatures here move along spiritual and energetic pathways. Salt disrupts those pathways, like an invisible static wall preventing unwanted eyes from focusing on you. And sage, that is the scent of protection. It does not just cleanse, it conceals. This forest has a phenomenal sense of smell, but sage is a confounding odor, a signal that you are a traveler with purpose, not a random piece of prey. When you purchase that dollar charm, you are executing a small transaction. You are accepting a silent responsibility that my family has always upheld, acknowledging that what you are about to see is not scenery, but a force. The charm is proof of that acknowledgement. If you feel this is superstition, that is perfectly fine. But if you carry no charm, you are walking into this forest as a foolhardy individual, unprotected from the minor annoyances that can quickly escalate into disaster. Remember this, we are not walking in a national park. We are walking in the Wildwood. And to the Wildwood, you are not a client. You are a passerby. I am the man in between, and I would rather you believe in a bit of rusty iron than in yourselves. Now set your packs down. We will take a few minutes to discuss the 4 rules. If this introduction sounds serious, it is because it is serious. Now put the historical stories aside. Let's talk about what will keep you alive for the next 3 days. This is not a national park. In a national park, people worry about stepping on flowers or feeding bears. Here, we worry about visitors becoming feed. This is the Wildwood. There are 4 unbreakable rules. You do not need to believe what I tell you, but you must obey them if you want to leave here with my group. Rule 1. Stay on the marked trails. This sounds obvious, but you'd be surprised where the intention to just circle that tree for a moment can lead. You will see vertical hash marks, 3 parallel cuts into the trunks of oaks and pines. They are not shallow wounds. They are deep old cuts, repainted with dark tree resin. These are the safe paths. They are the boundary. This boundary was established not to preserve vegetation. It was established to keep us separate from what lies outside. We call what is outside the trail the giants. I am not talking about the largest Kodiak bear or moose. While they exist and are terrifying, they move quickly, leave tracks, and are fearful of humans. The giants I speak of are different. They are slow-moving, unnaturally large entities, and they do not like intrusion. They are hulking masses of matter and shadow, like walking trees, only with muscle. You won't see them clearly. You will feel their pressure in the air. I have evidence. Every year, we find what are called bone pits. These are not native burial sites or ancient hunting holes. They are naturally undug, deep depressions, often 4 to 5 feet deep, found randomly in areas where no one should have gone. Inside, only an assembly of human bones, usually lost tourists, stray hunters, or foolish prospectors. Those skeletons are not just dry bones. They are gnawed clean, startlingly clean, utterly devoid of the signs of conventional predators. Bears tear, wolves shatter. Whatever did this was more careful, or possessed a jaw designed to separate flesh from structure without damaging the framework. It is like a brutal sculptor. You don't have to believe me that they are giants, but believe me that there are things outside the trail. And they do not eat people because they are hungry, but because they are irritated. Like a tree cut without permission, or a beehive destroyed. You are an inconvenience. If you see a dark brown blur move too quickly in your peripheral vision, or hear the sound of a tree breaking with absolutely no wind, or feel an inexplicable cold snap on a warm summer day, remember those 3 hash marks on the tree trunk. That is your lifeline. If you step off the boundary, you are no longer my concern. I will not risk the lives of others to search for someone who willfully violated Rule 1. This is the rule with no exceptions, no second chances. We have discussed the great dangers, the things large enough to tear an adult apart. Now, we will talk about the minor troubles, the ones that can paralyze your mind before the giants ever get a chance to find you. Rule 2. Carry a charm. If you bought one of my dollar charms, you have fulfilled this rule. If you did not, you can make one yourself, but you must do it now before we walk deep. Just a small bit of coarse sea salt in a tiny cloth bag, a rusty iron spike, or a piece of wood personally carved. Anything that carries personal meaning and is specialized by your effort. Here is the crux. This mountain is an intelligent entity, but it is also a haggler. It needs to see that you have brought something in preparation for your journey. Our old guides did not call this a charm. They called it the recognition. The ancients believed that when you carry an item taken from the forest itself, like hard maple wood, or something carrying protective energy, like the aforementioned iron, the forest will recognize you and overlook you. It thinks, "Ah, this is one of the respectful ones, one who is paid a spiritual fee." If you have a charm, you are exempted from the small harassments. I am talking about your compass going inexplicably haywire, the needle spinning madly despite no magnetic interference, or seeing faint, swift lights you can't quite place at dusk, or worse, hearing whispers in a language you frighteningly understand, but cannot repeat. Those things are the Wildwood's little fingers probing you. If you have no charm, you are merely a rude guest. And the mountain makes no concessions for rudeness. It will send these small irritations to break your sanity and focus, making it much easier for you to make a mistake, like stepping off the trail. The charm is not armor. It is a pass. Keep it in your pocket close to your heart or tied to your pack. Do not lose it. If it vanishes, stop immediately and tell me. If the first two rules keep you from dying, this third one will keep you from being sick or insane. Rule 3. Do not pick up feathers. This is the rule I need you to take most seriously, perhaps even more than sticking to the trail. Feathers are not pretty souvenirs. They are not decorations for your cap. If you see a feather, especially those that are black and unusually long, often slightly longer than your arm, lying on the trail, it was not dropped by a bird. It is a weight, a message from the older creatures, or an item carrying illness left by shamans of the region. These are old, heavy things carrying the stagnation of the land. Picking them up carries an inexplicable sickness. We are not talking about the flu. We are talking about chronic insomnia, insomnia so severe you start seeing things that should not be visible in daylight. Or worse, the permanent feeling of being watched after you leave. A chill behind your neck that never fades, even when you are back in the city surrounded by concrete. Do not touch it. Do not kick it. Walk around it and do not look back. However, I need you to remember this because it is the most important rule if you get lost. If you are lost, completely disoriented, which the charm might prevent but does not guarantee, do not panic and do not try to find your own way out. That will only lead you to a giant. Sit down. Be silent and patient. Move away from the trees and sit in a small clearing. There is a very large raven, larger than any normal crow. It has jet black plumage and usually never calls out a caw. It will approach you. It may perch on a nearby branch or even on the ground a few feet away from you. If you have them, offer it a mint-flavored Tic Tac. It likes the mint flavor. It will look at the package, and if you place one Tic Tac on the ground, it will come and take it. It is not a normal bird. It is the pathfinder, a representative of what watches us, an intermediary. If you offer it the candy, it will fly slowly, leading you back to the trail with the 3 hash marks. But remember, its feathers are still a deadly message. It only helps if you are lost. It is not a pet. Do not try to catch it. Name it or seek it out. If you are not lost, you should not see it. Finally, a basic act of courtesy. Rule 4. End the trip with a ritual. After 3 days, we will return to the parking lot. As you leave the trail, when you see the parking area, your cars, and the distant view of the town, do not rush to your vehicle. Stop. Turn back and look into the forest. This is not a photo opportunity. Silently thank the land for permitting your passage. You may say, "Thank you for the permission, Wildwood," or whatever other sincere gratitude you feel. Whisper it. This is the most important thing. It is a reminder that you were a guest. The forest does not need you. You need the forest. If you ignore this ritual, things will go out of balance. The land will try to retrieve what it allowed you to see or what you learned. This is where it gets personal. Why do we sometimes see unseasonal storms hit the town right after a group of hikers passes through? That is the land collecting its debt. Why does someone, after hiking, go home and forget how to use their car keys, or suddenly forget the names of their own children? That is the land taking back sanity or memory to rebalance your lack of respect. If you do not say thank you, you leave with a debt. And this mountain will always collect its debt, usually at the worst possible time for you. It likes to play long games. You don't have to believe in the giants, the charms, or the mint-loving raven. But you must believe that these 4 rules have kept my family safe for over 100 years. Stay close. Keep your wits about you. And if you see something that makes no sense, something that defies the rules of physics, tell me. Do not be afraid, but be careful. Now take one deep breath. Clench your charm tight. We begin the walk. Welcome to the Wildwood. We began our ascent at 10 a.m. The Wildwood forest did not greet us with shimmering sunshine. It swallowed the light whole. Minutes after leaving the parking lot, the air dropped perhaps 10 degrees, and the sound of birds seemed strangled. The land smelled of decayed wood and mineral salt, an ancient, heavy fragrance. There were 6 paying guests in my group. Mark, a young lawyer from the city who ostentatiously wore an expensive GPS watch and seemed to find every rule I said an amusement. Sarah, a plant biologist who immediately stooped to inspect every leaf and fungus we passed, and for others who were simply afraid and silent. You mentioned talismans, Mark spoke up, his voice carrying its familiar condescending edge. I have this titanium bracelet, etched in Morse code. Isn't that protective? I didn't turn to look at him. It is not protection. It is respect. Titanium is a man-made metal. This land only cares for iron, which draws its energy away, or wood, which it acknowledges. I pointed to the massive oak tree immediately to our right. Scratched into its dark, thick bark were 3 parallel vertical etchings. They were worn but distinct. This is the 3-vetch. Rule 1. Do not leave the path defined by it. As we went deeper, the forest became unnaturally still. Though the trail was cleared, the sense of being enclosed never vanished. We walked along the rim of a deep ravine, and I noticed Sarah deliberately hugging the limit line, almost scraping against the bark of the trees. Around noon, we stopped by a shallow stream. As the others drank, I saw something. About 20 feet off the path, where sunlight never quite reached, stood an old maple. Its trunk was perhaps 3 feet thick, and it wasn't fallen. It was broken. It wasn't a snap across the trunk. It had been bent sideways slowly, almost cruelly, about 7 feet off the ground. The break looked fresh, sap still wept from it. Must have been a massive gust of wind, Mark commented, taking photos of the stream. I shook my head. Wildwood doesn't have wind that does that. That gust would have blown our entire party away. Look at the break. It is clean, not ripped, like something placed immense, steady pressure on it. Sarah turned, her face pale. Steady pressure? You mean physics. I mean giants, Sarah, I said, keeping my voice low. We call them giants because they are bigger than anything you want to acknowledge. They move slow, but when they move, everything yields. That is a reminder that we are walking a path that is allowed, not a path that is cleared. This path is a bargain. I continued walking, leaving the broken tree behind us. The silence that followed was not quiet. It was expectant. After lunch, the trail climbed, becoming rockier and more treacherous. This was where those who hadn't carried their small talismans began experiencing the minor vexations I had warned against. A man named David, who had refused to buy my $1 charm, suddenly tripped over a root I was certain he'd seen. When he got up, his antique compass slipped out and rolled down a small, unretrievable rock crevice. "See," David wailed. "My compass is gone." You are not lost, I countered. But your compass can no longer help you. The mountain takes away the things you trust. It wants you to trust its rules, not your technology. Mark, still clinging to his titanium watch, decided to challenge this. He began walking with an unnecessary swagger, purposefully treading close to the edge of the trail, almost stepping across the three vetch. Whitlock, he called out to me. We are adults. If there's a bear, it leaves tracks. If there's a mythological creature, it leaves evidence. Just tell us those bone slurries are from oversized cougars. Abruptly, Mark stopped. He stared down at his wrist. His GPS watch, which he had checked meticulously every hour, had suddenly gone black. Battery died, he muttered, clearly irritated. The battery is not dead, I said, without looking at him. It is iron and salt. We walked another half-mile, and I noted the pressure intensifying. What I called the land's irritation had begun. It wasn't an immediate threat, but a persistent itch, as if someone were breathing directly down the back of your neck. About 4 hours into the hike, we reached a swampy area where the oak trees gave way to ancient pines. Here I saw what I feared most. Right in the center of the trail, wedged between two wet stones, was a single feather. It was unusually long, glossy black like oil, with stiff, almost plastic veins. It was not a normal bird feather. It had its own weight. I immediately raised my hand for a halt. Remember Rule 3, I whispered. Do not pick up feathers. Walk around it. Do not touch it. Sarah, the biologist, was closest. She stepped cautiously past, staring at the feather with professional curiosity. If it's a message, what is it? She asked. It is a promise, I explained. A promise of sleeplessness, of inexplicable cold in your bones. Sometimes, the creatures we don't see leave markers. Markers that say, I have seen you. I know you were here. Mark, always one to test the limits, started walking straight toward the feather, making a show of wanting to poke it with his walking stick. Don't. My voice was sharp, but I couldn't stop him in time. He tapped the feather with the tip of his stick, flicking it up slightly before it settled back into the mud puddle. The feather looked innocuous, but the moment it landed back in the dirt, a small shift occurred. A faint, almost unheard hiss emanated from the woods immediately to our right where the three vetch lay. It wasn't the hiss of a snake. It was the sound of compressed pressure. Immediately afterward, Mark dropped to his knees, not in fear, but from a sudden violent cramp. He screamed, clutching his leg. What the hell was that? He ground out. You disturbed the message, I said, the coldness back in my voice. The mountain doesn't like being mocked. And now the mountain has issued you a small weight to carry. Not the giants, just the irritation. I forced Mark to drink water and stretch. The cramp lasted nearly 15 minutes before subsiding. For that duration, not a single person in the group spoke. Mark's arrogance was gone, replaced by genuine terror. Even Sarah didn't try to analyze the muscle spasm. Everyone understood. The feather was no joke. We reached our designated campsite just before sundown. It was on a rocky outcrop, high above the rest of the forest, where we could see the distant peaks sinking into shadow. This is a safe zone, I announced as we dropped our packs. These stones are foundation. Giants do not like solid rock. They prefer mud and decay. My camping procedure was strict. Small fire, no unnecessary noise. No urinating or defecating outside the designated perimeter. The mountain especially hates that territorial disrespect. I had everyone fed and instructed to sleep as soon as the sun fully disappeared. As the sky turned from deep blue to absolute black, every small sound was amplified. Except we couldn't hear crickets or owls. The silence was absolute. I was sitting by the fire, sharpening my small hatchet, when I felt it. First, it was a vibration very low, like the bass from a massive sound system miles away. It wasn't a sound you heard with your ears. It was a rumble you felt with your bones. I stopped honing the blade. I looked around. Everyone else was asleep, or pretending to be. The vibration grew stronger. It wasn't an earthquake. It was too rhythmic, too profound. It was like the breathing of something immensely deep beneath the wildwood. Something that had been roused. I slowly stood and walked to the edge of the outcrop. I peered down into the thick darkness of the valley below. The vibration had now reached the point where I could feel it through the soles of my boots. It was a heavy asterisk thrum. Thrum. Asterisk, as if colossal steps were being taken, yet they never lifted from the ground. They simply exerted pressure. In the faint light of my headlamp, I saw Sarah sitting up in her sleeping bag. She looked at me, eyes wide, not daring to speak. "What is that, Elijah?" she whispered, her voice shaking. "That's why we're on the rock," I replied, my own voice barely a murmur. "It is the sound of the giants. They are moving. Or perhaps, they are merely walking their old trails." The vibration lasted 5 more minutes, then stopped abruptly. The silence returned, but this time it was thicker, heavier. It was not quiet. It was a holding of breath. I sat back down by the fire, staying awake. I saw Mark, the victim of the cramp, huddled deep in his bag. His titanium watch remained dark. The first night on Wildwood had passed, and I knew that everyone in the group had understood. They were not dealing with tall tales. They were dealing with necessary rules designed to stave off something far larger than their imaginations. We hadn't been eaten, but we had been felt. And that was a terrible start to a 3-day trip. I drew out my own iron talisman, rubbing it in my palm for rough assurance. Tomorrow we would have to go deeper into the land of the fading marks. "Welcome. My name is Elijah Whitlock. I will be your guide on this cracked canyon trail. Mountain Ridge Tours. We are still called the Dollar Charm Company by the older folks. We are not a shady tour operator. We are keepers, and this trip is not recreation. It is a permission. My family has walked these mountains since before they were mapped. My father, my grandfather, they were all guides. They survived because they respected the land, not because they loved it. I demand your full alertness and caution. This land only cares about its own quietude. My mother, the town librarian, believed that the story is how the mountain remembers things. And if you don't know its story, you become one, usually a short, tragic one. Regarding the Dollar Charm Company name you hear, I maintain the selling of these things, charms made of iron, salt, and dried sage. They cost $1. This is not for profit. The cost of materials is negligible, and I do not need your money. You do not set a price on survival. You simply need to show you are mentally prepared and demonstrate respect. It is a quiet responsibility my family has always upheld. My great-grandfather started this tradition when he noticed that those carrying even a symbolic item were less prone to strange accidents. It is a silent agreement with the land. Now, setting aside the historical tales, let us talk about what will keep you alive for the next 3 days. This is not a national park. This is Wildwood. There are 4 unbreakable rules. You don't have to believe what I say, but you must follow them. Rule 1. Always stay on the marked trails. You will see vertical hashes, 3 parallel cuts on the trunks of oak and pine trees. These are the safe paths. They are boundaries. We call the things off-trail the giants. I am not talking about big bears or large moose. I am talking about entities that move slowly, are unnaturally large, and they do not like to be intruded upon. We often imagine great threats as agile and aggressive, but these creatures are different. They are slow, almost part of the landscape until they aren't. Every year, we find what are called bone pits. They are not naturally excavated holes, just a collection of human bones, usually lost hikers or stray hunters, gnawed clean, pristine, utterly lacking the marks of common scavengers. No claw marks, no typical bite patterns, just bone that has been polished clean. You don't have to believe they are giants, but believe me that there are things off the trail, and they don't eat people out of hunger but out of annoyance. They treat your stepping out of bounds as an insult, and their punishment is sanitation. If you see a blur, or hear trees breaking without wind, or feel the ground shake without an earthquake, recall those 3 hash marks. They are the only physical reminder you have. If you step off the boundary, you are no longer my problem. No rescue teams are sent after those who wander in Wildwood. What happens there stays there. Rule 2. Carry a charm. This is the rule most people scoff at. It's superstition, they say. I have a GPS and a Swiss Army knife. They are wrong. The charm is not magic. It is diplomacy. It is physical proof that you have acknowledged that this forest has laws of its own, laws that supersede your technology. If you don't buy one of my $1 charms, made of scrap iron, a pinch of coarse salt, and some moon-dried sage, then make your own. Just a handful of coarse sea salt, a rusted piece of iron, or a piece of hand-carved wood. The issue is not the material, but the intention to offer something. This mountain is an intelligent entity, but it is also a bargainer. It needs to see that you brought something to prepare for your journey, something it can recognize as an offering. Why those materials? Iron is the substance of humanity, a sign of stubbornness and civilization, but when rusted, it also carries decay, dissolution into nature. Salt is purity and an ancient barrier against evil spirits. Though I am not saying we are dealing with spirits, respect for ancient forms of protection is vital. Sage is cleansing and apology in advance. The charm is a letter of credit. It permits you passage without causing minor troubles. I spoke of the giants, the large, tangible threats. But there is a lower, more persistent level of trouble that most people never survive to tell about. They are the Wildwood's annoyances. That is why you need the charm. The charm does not protect you from the bone pits, that is rule 1, but it prevents the small, ridiculous disturbances, like inexplicably losing your compass, batteries suddenly dying despite being fully charged, or seeing things you shouldn't at twilight. We are talking about extreme disorientation, confusion of time and space, and the feeling of being tracked by something unseen but utterly present. If you do not carry a charm, you are simply a rude guest. And the mountain does not brook rudeness. It doesn't need to send a giant. It only needs to bend reality slightly to make you harm yourself. I remember a group from Boston about 10 years ago, a geological scientist named Dr. Eris. He was arrogant, brimming with scientific hubris. He laughed in my face when I offered him a charm. I believe in magnetic fields and satellites, he said. Not rusty iron. He didn't buy one. They stayed on the marked trail following Rule 1 perfectly, but they violated Rule 2. 2 days later, Eris and his team returned. They were physically unharmed, but their spirits were broken. Eris claimed his compasses started spinning backward, and not just the compass, but his GPS also showed they were moving back toward town even though they were clearly hiking deeper into the woods. Worse, they began to find unexplained marks in their campsite. Specifically, Eris recounted that every morning, he found all his knives flipped upside down, blades plunged deep into the earth, even though he was certain he had packed them away in the utensil box. They were small, teasing warnings. Then came the rocks. On the second night, they heard faint dropping sounds. When they woke, they found a circle of small, smooth rocks surrounding Eris's tent. Rocks not native to that area, of a type only found at higher altitudes, and perfectly arranged. Like a giant child playing with his toys, moving heavy things with ease and silence. Eris panicked not because of the attack, but because of the precision of the disturbance. He tried to explain everything scientifically, but there was no explanation for the permanently altered compass. Even after leaving Wildwood, his compass never worked correctly, or the shifting stones. Here's the crux of the matter. When you carry a symbolic item, sourced from the forest itself, like maple wood, or something with protective energy, like iron, the forest recognizes you and overlooks you. It is not a shield, It is a tiny cloak of invisibility. It thinks, "Ah, this is one of the respectful ones, the one who paid the symbolic toll." Without the charm, you emit a kind of biological noise, an odor of indifference and complacency that the land finds irritating. The annoyances occur as a means of forcing you to acknowledge its presence, by stripping away the tools you rely on, or blurring the lines between what you think is real and what you see. My family, the guides who have lived here for generations, they don't just carry the charms. They are the charms. We are attuned to this rhythm of respect. We understand that when you step into the Wildwood, you are entering a complex system of negotiation. The charm is your collateral. If you lose it or forget it, stop immediately and find a stone or a piece of oak and carve those 3 hash marks into it. Make an immediate substitute. Do not proceed without a silent admission that you are only a guest here. These annoyances are the pathfinders for the giants. When you become disoriented and isolated by these minor disturbances, you are more likely to violate Rule 1, and that is when the real threat begins. Remember, mental preparedness is the best form of protection. The charm is proof of that preparation. Rule 3. Do not pick up feathers. This is the one rule I need you to take most seriously, even more than carrying the charm. Feathers are not quaint souvenirs. We have plenty of large birds here, hawks, eagles, but the feathers we speak of are different. They are typically jet black, unnaturally glossy, unusually long, often longer than your palm. And they sit alone, in the middle of the trail, as if deliberately placed there. If you see such a feather on the trail, it was not dropped by a bird. It is a weight, a message from the older beings smarter than the giants, or a vehicle of sickness deliberately left by regional sorcerers, who still exist, even today. Picking them up will carry with it an unexplainable sickness, and no doctor in town can help you. The symptoms are not flu. They are states of prolonged insomnia until you begin hallucinating, extreme nightmares about being buried alive, or the sensation of being perpetually tracked long after you leave. It is almost as if you have picked up a shard of the forest's dark memory, and it clings to you. However, I need you to commit this to memory, in case you have violated Rule 2 and the annoyances have left you completely disoriented. If you get lost, completely turned around, sit down. Be silent and patient. Do not panic and do not wander. There is a very large coal-black crow. It never cries caw like other crows. It is remarkably silent. It will approach you. If you offer it a mint Tic Tac, it likes mint. I don't know why, but it does. It will land on the nearest branch and then fly a short distance. If you follow it, it will guide you back to the marked trail. It is not a common bird. It is the guide of the forest, an entity of balance. But remember, its feather is still a fatal message. If you see its feather shed, do not pick it up. Thank it with the mint, follow it, and never try to touch it. Rule 4. End the trip with a ritual. When you exit the trail, when you see the parking lot area, do not rush to your car, turn on the music and drive away. Stop. Turn back and look into the woods. Silently thank the land for allowing you passage. You do not need to speak aloud. A whisper, a thought in your head, is enough. This ritual is the most important. It is the reminder that you are a guest. The forest does not need you. You need the forest. If you skip this ritual, things fall out of balance. The land will try to reclaim what it showed you or what you learned. This is not punishment, it is debt collection. Sometimes it is simply memory loss about the trip, you forget entirely what you saw, or the loss of important items after returning. But sometimes it is more serious. That is why we sometimes see unexplainable storms hitting the town after a group of tourists has just passed through without showing respect. The land demands an acknowledgement. If you don't say thank you, you leave with a debt. And this mountain will always collect its debt. You do not have to believe in the giants, in the charms, or in the mint-loving crow. But you must believe that these 4 rules have kept my family and our community safe for over 100 years. Stay close. Keep your wits about you. And if you see something that does not make sense, tell me. Do not hide it. Now take a deep breath. We begin the walk. Welcome to Wildwood. Welcome. My name is Elijah Whitlock. I will be your guide on the path of this split canyon trail. Mountain Ridge Tours, or, as the old-timers call us, the Dollar Charm Company. Understand this. We are not some shady tourist operation. We are custodians, and this trip is not entertainment. It is a concession. My family has walked these mountains since before they had a name on any map. My father, my grandfather, they were all guides. They survived because they respected the land, not because they loved it. My mother, the town librarian, believed that the story is how the mountain remembers things. And if you don't know its story, you become one. Regarding that name, the Dollar Charm Company, I maintain the sale of these things. They are talismans made of iron, salt, and dried sage. They cost $1. Not for profit. You don't put a price on survival. You just demonstrate that you are mentally prepared and show respect. It's a silent responsibility my family has always upheld. Now set aside the historical anecdotes. Let's discuss what will keep you alive for the next 3 days. This is not a national park. This is the Wildwood. There are 4 unbreakable rules. You do not have to believe what I say, but you are required to follow it. Rule 1. Always stay on the marked trails. You will see vertical gashes, 3 parallel cuts carved into the trunks of the oak and pine trees. These are the safe paths. They are the boundaries. We refer to the things outside the trail as the giants. I am not talking about bears or large moose. I am talking about entities that move slowly, are unnaturally sized, and they do not like to be intruded upon. Every year, we find what are called bone pits. These are deep holes that were not dug naturally. Just a collection of human remains, usually stray hikers or hunters, gnawed clean, pristine, completely devoid of the usual markings of common predators. You don't have to believe me that they are giants, but believe me that there are things off the trail, and they don't eat humans out of hunger but out of irritation. If you see a smear of movement, or hear the sound of a tree breaking with no wind, remember those 3 gash carvings. If you step off the boundary, you are no longer my concern. Rule 2. Carry a charm. If you didn't purchase one of my dollar charms, make your own. Just a pinch of coarse sea salt, a rusted piece of iron, or a hand-carved piece of wood. This mountain is an intelligent entity, but it is also a haggler. It needs to see that you brought something to prepare for your journey. The ancients believed that when you carry an item taken from the forest itself, like maple wood, or something carrying protective energy, like iron, the forest will recognize you and pass you by. It thinks, oh, this is one of the respectful ones. The charm won't protect you from the bone pits, but it wards off the petty troubles, like a compass mysteriously spinning, or seeing things you shouldn't at twilight. If you lack a charm, you are merely a rude guest, and the mountain does not cotton to rudeness. Rule 3. Do not pick up feathers. This is the rule I need you to take most seriously. Listen closely. Feathers are not pretty souvenirs, and they are not signs of good luck. In this Wildwood, feathers are currency, messages, and sometimes direct curses. If you see a feather, especially those that are unusually long and black on the trail, do not stop, do not bend down, and absolutely do not touch it. Step over it as if it were a patch of acid. These feathers do not belong to any bird we know. They are usually 6 to 10 inches long, jet black, but possess an unnatural sheen, like polished obsidian. They are never dirty. No matter how long they lie in the mud, they are clean, dry, as if they were just dropped from an unimaginable height. We call them a weight. My family, and the indigenous people who live deeper in the valley, believe these feathers are direct markers from the ancient creatures, entities that were here even before the giants. They are placed on the trail deliberately, either as a warning, you are going the right way, but we know you are here, or as a trap. If you pick them up, you will carry an inexplicable ailment. It is not a cold or a flu. It is a slow spiritual dissipation, a draining of vital energy. Symptoms usually start with prolonged insomnia, not difficulty sleeping, but inability to sleep. You will feel as if you've drunk pure coffee, yet your body is exhausted. Then comes the perpetual feeling of being watched, even after you leave the Wildwood. It is not the feeling of being stared at. It is the feeling that you are being measured, being weighed. That weight, that attention has attached itself to you. I once knew a hunter named Silas. He found such a feather near the river bend. It was so beautiful he tucked it into his hat. When he returned to town, he started talking to the walls. He did not sleep for 6 weeks. His face was gaunt, cheekbones protruding. He always looked skyward, even indoors, as if he were waiting for something to drop. Finally, Silas locked himself in his cabin and vanished. When we found the cabin, the feather was still there, on the discarded hat. But Silas was gone. No sign of a struggle, only the window flung wide open. The forest had reclaimed the debt it gave him. Feathers are the speech of the forest. And the speech of the forest is a curse, not a blessing. Asterisk asterisk. However, there is one exception to my loathing of flying creatures. This is the only part of this rule that I hope you must use, should the worst occur. If you get lost, I'm not talking about taking a wrong turn. I mean total disorientation, no markings, compass spinning, and you cannot find those 3 gash carvings. Sit down. Do not panic. Panic creates spiritual noise, and the giants favor chaos. Sit down calmly. Be silent and patient. You will have to wait. Sometimes 10 minutes, sometimes an hour. And then it will come. There is a very large raven that lives in the Wildwood. It is bigger than any raven you have ever seen. Its wingspan is nearly that of a small eagle, and its plumage is black as crude oil. Most importantly, it never caws. It is completely silent. It moves through the woods like a shadow, making no sound, breaking no branch. We call it the broker, because it maintains the equilibrium between those who respect the laws and the brutality of the forest. When it arrives, it will land on a branch near you, close enough that you can see its eyes, deep, extremely intelligent black eyes. It will look at you, and that silence is a question. This is where you make your transaction. You must always carry mint Tic Tac candy. Only Tic Tacs. Only mint flavor. Not Altoids, not Winterfresh, and certainly not those colorful gummies. Just mint Tic Tacs. No one knows why, but that is the currency it demands. Perhaps that sharp mint scent helps mask the human scent of fear, or perhaps the Tic Tacs are shaped like small stones, a symbolic concession. Take out the box of candy. Slowly, open it. Pour a small amount, about 5 to 7 pieces, onto a flat log or a rock. Absolutely do not throw them onto the ground, and don't try to hand them directly to it. The raven will wait until you retreat. Then it will slowly glide down, carefully picking up the candies. It will not eat right away. It stores them in its crop. When the payment is accepted, it will fly up and start moving. You must follow it. Maintain a distance of about 10 meters. It will not fly straight. It will fly in confusing zigzag patterns, but those zigzags will always lead you to a location on the marked trail, usually right next to a prominent 3-gash carving. Once you are safely back on the trail, the raven will land one last time. It will look at you again and then it will vanish. Don't try to thank it. Don't try to take a picture. Don't try to call its name. The transaction is complete. The strangest thing, and this is what I need you to understand about the complex nature of the Wildwood, is the connection between the broker and the deadly messages. This raven is the thing that drops those deadly feathers. It is the messenger and it is also the guide. Its body is the intersection of salvation and destruction. Its feathers, when shed naturally, carry the burden of the forest. But the creature itself, when justly paid, can transcend those burdens to pull you out of danger. If you are lost and the raven comes, remember, you are dealing with an entity of death. It is merely temporarily accepting mint as a substitute. If you try to touch it, or if you pick up any feathers you see while following it, you will break the agreement, and it will not stop to watch you fall into a bone pit. So, Rule 3 is a two-sided warning. Feathers bring curses. The raven brings survival. But do not mistake one for the other. Mint is what wards off the feathers. Always carry Tic Tacs. They are your insurance policy in the Wildwood. Rule 4. End the journey with a ritual. When you leave the trail, when you see the parking area, do not rush to your vehicle. Stop. Turn back and look into the woods. Silently thank the land for allowing your passage. This is the most critical element. It is a reminder that you are a guest. The forest does not need you. You need the forest. If you ignore this ritual, things will fall out of balance. The land will try to take back what it showed you or what you learned. That is why we sometimes see unexplainable storms strike the town shortly after a group of visitors has just passed through. If you do not offer thanks, you leave with a debt. And this mountain will always claim what it is owed. You don't have to believe in the giants, or the charms, or the mint-loving raven. But you must believe that these 4 rules have kept my family safe for over 100 years. Stay close, keep your senses sharp, and if you see something that makes no sense, tell me. Now take a deep breath. We start walking. Welcome to the Wildwood. Welcome. My name is Elijah Whitlock. I will be your guide on the Cracked Canyon Trail. Mountain Ridge Tours. Some of the older locals still call us the Dollar Charm Company. Let me be clear. We are not a shady tourism operation. We are guardians, and this journey is not a recreational outing. It is a permission. My family has walked these mountains since before they had a name on any map. My father, my grandfather, they were all guides. They survived because they respected the land, not because they loved it. My mother, she was the town librarian, and she believed that the story is how the mountain remembers things. And if you don't know its story, you become one. Regarding the Dollar Charm Company name you might hear, I maintain the selling of these things, charms made of iron, salt, and dried sage. They cost $1. Not for profit. You do not place a price tag on survival. You merely show that you came prepared in spirit and showed respect. It is a silent responsibility my family has upheld. Now, enough of the history. Let's talk about what keeps you alive for the next 3 days. This is not a national park. This is the Wildwood. There are 4 unbreakable rules. You do not have to believe what I tell you, but you must obey it. Rule 1. Always stay on the marked trails. You will see vertical scorings, 3 parallel cuts into the trunk of an oak or a pine. These are the safe paths. They are the boundary. We refer to the things outside the trail markers as the giants. I am not talking about big bears or large moose. I am talking about slow-moving, unnaturally sized entities, and they do not like being intruded upon. Every year, we find what are called bone pits. They are not natural depressions. Just a collection of human remains, usually stray hikers or hunters, picked clean, utterly devoid of common predator markings. You do not have to believe me that they are giants, but trust me that there are things outside the trail, and they don't eat humans out of hunger. They eat them out of annoyance. If you see a blur, or hear a tree snap with no wind, remember those 3 scoring marks. If you step across the boundary, you are no longer my problem. Rule 2. Carry a charm. If you don't buy one of my $1 charms, you must fashion your own. A pinch of coarse sea salt, a rusted piece of iron, or a hand-carved piece of wood will suffice. This mountain is an intelligent entity, but it is also a bargainer. It needs to see that you brought something to prepare for your passage. The old ones believe that when you carry an item taken from the forest itself, like maple wood, or something imbued with protective energy, like iron, the forest recognizes you and overlooks you. It thinks, ah, this is one of the respectful ones. The charm doesn't protect you from the bone pits, but it stops the small irritations, like a compass failing for no reason, or seeing things you shouldn't see at twilight. Without a charm, you are merely a rude guest. And the mountain makes no cotton, gives no quarter, for rudeness. Rule 3. Do not pick up feathers. This is the rule I need you to take most seriously. Feathers are not pretty souvenirs. If you see a feather, especially one that is unusually long and black on the trail, it was not dropped by a bird. It is a weight, a message from older creatures, or a cursed item left by the regional shamans. Picking them up invites an unexplained ailment, long-term insomnia, or a permanent sense of being watched long after you leave. However, I need you to remember this. If you become lost, completely disoriented, sit down. Be quiet and patient. A very large raven that never makes a caw sound will approach you. If you offer it a mint Tic Tac, it likes the mint ones. It will lead you back to the trail. It is not a bird. It is the guide. But remember, its feathers are still a deadly message. Rule 4. End the trip with a ritual. When you exit the trail, when you can see the parking area, do not rush to your car. Stop. Turn around and look back into the forest. Silently thank the land for allowing your passage. This is the most important part. It is the acknowledgement that you were a guest. The forest doesn't need you. You needed the forest. If you skip this ritual, things fall out of balance. The land will try to reclaim what it showed you or what you learned. This is why we sometimes see unseasonable storms hit the town right after a group of hikers passes through. If you don't say thank you, you leave with a debt. And this mountain will always claim its due. You don't have to believe in the giants, in the charms, or in the mint-loving raven. But you must believe these 4 rules have kept my family safe for over 100 years. Stay close. Keep your wits about you. And if you see something that doesn't make sense, tell me. Now take a deep breath. We start the walk. Welcome to the Wildwood. I call this the balance calculus of the land. The Wildwood is not a benevolent place. It is an entity that operates on the law of exchange, like an ancient marketplace. When you stepped in, you paid a deposit, my $1 charm, or your homemade fetish. But that deposit was merely an assurance that you wouldn't be immediately devoured. During your 3 days here, you have taken clean air, you have taken sunlight, you have taken water from the streams, and most importantly, you have taken the permission to exist within sight of the giants without being noticed by them. These are invisible debts. The land expects a commensurate balance when you leave. The exit ritual is not a prayer. It is the signing of a receipt. It is a physical act proving that your mind has acknowledged the privilege. This is how you perform it. When we reach the tree line where you can see the asphalt parking lot and the sound of traffic starts to rise, you must stop. Even if you are exhausted and just want to get into the car. Do not immediately turn your back on the forest. Turn slowly, facing the trees. Look at the old oaks, the towering pines. Find something to touch, a root jutting out of the ground or a mossy rock. Touch it with your hand and say, not out loud, just think, I passed through. I took nothing but what I was allowed. Thank you for the peace. This is not a spell. This is a declaration of liability. The act of touching is the most critical element. It connects the energy, a way of telling the forest that you were a part of it, even temporarily, and now you are actively severing that connection respectfully. If you merely glide past, touching nothing, acknowledging nothing, the forest perceives you as a stray ghost, and it will try to reel you back in. If you skip the ritual, the Wildwood will not send a giant into the parking lot after you. The repayment is subtler and sometimes far more terrifying. The land will seek to reclaim what it showed you. This is especially dangerous if you have seen something truly unnatural. Perhaps you caught the distant shadow of a giant. Perhaps you saw the large raven. The forest does not want this knowledge to escape. If you leave unpaid, the land will start sucking those memories out of your head. I have seen it happen. People go home, and they suddenly cannot recall any details of the trip. They have a mental blank. It starts with forgetting the town's name, then forgetting the faces of their companions, and eventually a total disconnect from everything. These people aren't mentally ill. They are being purposefully drained of memory. Their debt was understanding. They become empty vessels. The land's greatest debt is your sanity. Or worse, the land might reclaim the peace. Many people who skip the ritual report a perpetual sense of being watched upon returning. They will wake at 3 a.m. and feel a cold mass of air standing at the foot of their bed. It is not a spirit. It is the Wildwood's displeasure. An invisible hook the land attaches to your psyche to remind you that something is missing. That feeling never goes away until you return and perform the ritual, or until you pay an equivalent price. An unexplainable accident or financial ruin. Anything that restores the balance the land feels is lacking. Most people think ignoring the thanks only affects them, but that isn't true. When a group of visitors leaves rudely, that imbalance doesn't just sit with them. It settles on the town itself. My family is called the Guardians not because we work for the government. We are the Guardians because we are the intercessors for this bargain. Every time a person strays or dies in the woods, my family carries part of that debt. That is why my father, and now myself, maintain such a grim demeanor. When you hear about unseasonable storms hitting the town right after a group has left, it is not coincidence. The land is angry. It is claiming energy back. It might be a freak November tornado, or an unusual drought that kills the crops. These are the ways the Wildwood says, "You disrespected me, and now I will disturb your world to balance the books." When you perform the ritual of thanks, you are not just protecting yourself. You are lessening the burden on this community. You are telling the mountain, this is the cutoff point. The debt is paid. The Whitlock family created the $1 charm system not just for your protection. It is for ours. When you buy that charm, and when you perform that final ritual, you are acknowledging that you have entered into this mountain system of law. You are saying, I know the rules. If you skip the ritual, you are not just breaking a rule. You are breaking a vow made with salt, iron, and sage. Your charm. That vow, inscribed into the land, makes the Wildwood's retribution more personal, because you showed it that you knew the proper conduct, yet you chose to be rude. When you leave, never let pride or exhaustion conquer respect. It takes 20 seconds, a touch, a silent thank you, to ensure the mountain doesn't follow you home. The last 5 people who failed to do it paid with their memory. We found one of them 2 weeks later, wandering on a highway 300 miles away, unable to recall his name, but still clutching his broken compass. Do not become a story. Be a person who passed through the Wildwood and settled his account. Keep your wits about you. Now shoulder your packs. We start the walk. Welcome to the Wildwood.